worse. Spread all the way down here.
Tonight, go now, the message for thousands in New Mexico as wildfires burn out of control.
This thing turned from a very small puff of smoke into a full raging, all-consuming fire fed by the winds.
Why firefighters are struggling to contain the blazes.
Of course, the fire is moving pretty quickly. It's a difficult situation, and it's a rapidly changing situation.
Plus, the record-breaking heat wave for much of the country. The CBS Evening News starts now. Fast-moving wildfires, record-breaking heat, and a tropical storm threat. Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for being with us. And the weather is where we're going to begin tonight, because right now, Americans are facing extreme conditions from coast to coast. 76 million people are suffering under oppressive heat across 24 states as high temperatures scorch the Midwest and Northeast. And the worst of the heat is yet to come. Down south, parts of Texas are under tropical storm warnings as we track a system in the Gulf of Mexico that is likely to become the first named storm of the season. And out west, dozens of wildfires are raging, including these two, converging in New Mexico. We have team coverage of all these dangerous conditions, and we will start with CBS's Omar Villafranca in New Mexico, where the governor has just declared a state of emergency.
Towering smoke and flames obliterated the sky. The fire scorching over 19,000 acres in less than 24 hours.
There's 2 ongoing fires right now.
Those in the mountain town of Ruidoso were told to run for their lives.
The sheriff drove down the street with the sirens going and his bullhorn saying, "You have 5 minutes."
The urgent evacuation led to a traffic jam as people fled on the main road out.
This thing turned from a very small puff of smoke into an all-consuming fire.
Steve Jones left his mountain home with his wife and spoke to us from his car.
I didn't even look in the rearview mirror. As we drove away from the house, I didn't even give it a second thought. I basically have the attitude that if it's there when it gets back, that's God's will. If it's not, that's God's will.
Not one, but 2 separate wildfires 75 miles west of Roswell. So far, more than 500 structures have been burned, with firefighters unable to gain control.
It was difficult to get folks in because of the mountainous terrain. Air support was doing retardant drops and water drops yesterday. They'll continue to do that today on both fires. It's a difficult situation.
The village of Ruidoso is about 37 miles behind me in that plume of smoke. It is shut down and it is evacuated. A police chief actually told us that 5 fires started in the area yesterday. Crews were able to knock down about 3 of them, but 2 are still burning, as you see behind me. It is going to be a long night for fire crews. Nora?
Scary situation there, Omar Villafranca. Thank you very much. Now to the life-threatening heat wave stretching from Missouri to Maine. CBS's Nikki Batiste reports the Northeast is getting ready for the triple digits.
Across Massachusetts, 911 switchboards were temporarily disrupted by a statewide outage today as temperatures soared into the 90s. First responders assured residents they have other ways to stay connected.
We send each other a message, we talk on radios, and we bail each other out. So as long as it gets in the system, well, we'll be able to connect to the right service.
Humidity in Boston could make temperatures feel like 99 degrees by the end of the week. The massive heat wave stretches all the way to Pittsburgh, where storms knocked out power to thousands of households on the hottest day of the year so far.
Everybody's outside, their houses are hot, it's cooler out here. Nobody's got their AC, nobody's going to be able to sleep.
New York's governor has declared a heat emergency, activating the National Guard in at least 2 cities to assist.
We don't need any fancy data to tell us this. It's going to be extremely hot and uncomfortable. In fact, it'll be dangerously hot.
In Syracuse, where record temperatures rose to 96 degrees today, public schools let out early because most of their classrooms don't have air conditioners.
They get too hot, they're not going to be able to concentrate and do anything that's productive. So that's what we had to balance.
Some of those kids who got out early headed to the city's first public pool to open. It hit capacity in just 30 minutes. Desiree Vega and her son Lucas, along with 300 others, came here to beat the heat.
The pool is the one place.
Yeah, it's the one place where you can be cool and be outside at the same time.
The superintendent told me one of their classroom thermostats reached 98 degrees this week. Temperatures here are expected to continue to hit at least 96 degrees over the next 2 days. That's something that has not happened in June since the National Weather Service started keeping records in 1903. Nora?
Nikki Batiste, thank you. And as Nikki points out, for it to be this hot this early is not normal. So let's bring in CBS Philadelphia's chief meteorologist, Bill Kelly, for how hot it's going to get. Good evening, Bill.
Nora, there are two big stories in the weather world that we are tracking. First, the heat. We're talking more than 75 million people from Maine right down through the Great Lakes and the Midwest under some kind of heat alert. And all of the alerts are in play. We're looking at heat advisories, excessive heat watches, even a handful of excessive heat warnings. Temperatures, how about some of these numbers? Syracuse, 102 is your forecast for tomorrow. You want to get some relief in Maine? I don't think so. 104 up around Bangor. The other story that we're looking at is down in the Gulf. I mean, we're going to walk on down and track what will likely become our next named storm. This is Tropical Cyclone 1, potential Tropical Cyclone 1, and this is going to bring a lot of rainfall for you folks in Texas. We're talking about 5 to 15 inches of rain from Houston right down through Brownsville. Most of this tomorrow and into early Thursday morning. And if that wasn't enough, by the time we get to the weekend, we may be tracking our next storm, which would be Beryl. Nora?
Bill Kelly, thank you. Turning to Capitol Hill, where the Boeing CEO was in the hot seat, facing not just Congress, but family members of plane crash victims. The head of the nation's largest aerospace manufacturer is under fire for safety problems and his own pay. CBS's Chris Van Cleve was at the contentious hearing.
Families who lost loved ones in the two 737 MAX crashes had harsh words for Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun ahead of the Senate hearing.
I apologize for the grief that we have caused.
Calhoun started his remarks by facing those families and apologizing before taking responsibility for those crashes and the door panel that blew out of an Alaska Airlines flight earlier this year.
Our culture is far from perfect, but we are taking action and we are making progress.
Missouri Senator Josh Hawley did not mince words.
How, if safety is a component of your $33 million compensation package, I mean, how can you possibly qualify for any of this?
The only way to course correct is to face the truth and confront the need for action.
We are responsible.
Calhoun's testimony comes just hours after a new whistleblower complaint emerged, alleging when Boeing restarted production of the 737 MAX after those two deadly crashes, there was a 300% increase in reports about parts that did not meet proper manufacturing standards. And while those parts were supposed to be removed from production and closely tracked, the 737 program was losing hundreds of non-conforming parts. Boeing employee Sam Mohawk feared that non-conforming parts were being installed on 737s, and that could lead to a catastrophic event. The document also claims when Boeing learned of a pending FAA inspection last June, many parts were moved to another location to, quote, intentionally hide improperly stored parts from the FAA.
I do know, and it followed up, that the speak-up had been received in our system and that the quality team has been and is looking.
The MAX families have been calling for the Department of Justice to file criminal charges against Boeing. The agency has until July 7th to make that decision. Senator Blumenthal now says he believes the DOJ should file those criminal charges. Nora.
Chris Van Cleve, thank you. In one of the most significant immigration actions in years, President Biden announced sweeping protections today for hundreds of thousands of Americans who've been living in the United States illegally but are married to American citizens. It's the second time in the past month that the president has taken far-reaching executive action on immigration. CBS's Lilia Luciano spoke with one family now on a pathway to citizenship.
Another big election year move by President Biden on immigration.
We can both secure the border and provide legal pathways to citizenship.
The president announced a streamlined pathway to citizenship for more than 500,000 undocumented spouses married to American citizens. To be eligible, couples must already be married, they must have been in the country for 10 years, and have no criminal record. Their undocumented children are also eligible. The policy comes 2 weeks after the administration severely restricted access to asylum for people crossing the border illegally. Today's announcement could help Biden in key battleground states like Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, where there are more than 300,000 mixed-status families that would benefit.
A lot of people think that if you marry an American citizen, you can easily get a green card. Well, that is not the case, especially for people who cross the border illegally or overstay a visa. And even in the cases when they could be eligible, they still have to go back to their country and wait before being allowed to come back as permanent residents.
I mean, there's a lot that I worry about.
R. Singh came to the U.S. from India 11 years ago and overstayed a visa. He has been married to Anai, an American citizen, for 6 years. They have a 10-month-old daughter and a baby on the way.
It's very stressful to think about him having to leave.
Under the new policy, R could stay in the country through his immigration process, protected from deportation and eligible to work legally.
He has nobody in India, and I have nobody in India. There's nothing for us over there.
What's the hardest part about still being undocumented?
You cannot enjoy the life.
And now 12 years since the implementation of the DACA program, which provided deportation protection to many people who came to the U.S. undocumented as children, this program expands access to certain visas for some of them who qualify. Nora?
Lilia Luciano, thank you. Now we'll look at tonight's other top stories, starting with Russian President Vladimir Putin's rare trip to North Korea to visit Kim Jong-un. As CBS's Liz Palmer reports, the United States is closely watching the meeting of two authoritarian leaders.
I'm standing outside the Russian embassy in London. Nora, Vladimir Putin landed in Pyongyang tonight on his first visit in almost a quarter of a century. This is a meeting of two pariah leaders who haven't got many other allies. And the fact is they need each other. Russia needs North Korean weapons to use in Ukraine, and North Korea needs Russian oil, food, and technology to improve its rocket launches and possibly even its nuclear weapons program.
And thank you to our CBS News teams around the globe. Eye on America is next with an ugly side of democracy. We'll introduce you to the local candidates now forced to endure threats and political mudslinging. We are less than 5 months from Election Day in a campaign season that we can safely predict will only get more heated from here. But it's not only the national campaigns where candidates are subjected to ever-increasing levels of nastiness. It's getting pretty toxic in local races as well. Here's CBS's Caitlin Huey-Burns with tonight's Eye on America.
These days, for local politicians in Washoe County, Nevada, there's less and less that's civil about their discourse, especially when it comes to their school board.
I want you to take these books out of the school. It's pornography.
So when Beth Smith joined the school board, she knew she'd be challenged. But she didn't expect to read blogs like this, detailing her painful divorce and making light of her recent battle with cancer.
When I see messaging with death imagery, I know that it's part of their attacks to get me to stop doing this work.
Well, sound like little sissies.
Local political activist Robert Beatles might be the brawler with the barest knuckles in Washoe County.
I have a ton of money, and I'm going to do everything that I can to remove all of you.
Beatles, seen here 3 years ago, says he made millions in crypto and real estate. He wrote the blog post about Smith.
Are you a bully?
If they're running for office and they can't take the truth about them being told in whatever light, then maybe they shouldn't be running for office.
Smith isn't alone facing menacing tactics here. In 2022, both a Washoe County Commission candidate and Reno's mayor found GPS trackers on their cars. The police questioned the private investigator. He wouldn't name his client, but he did talk motive.
Is it political or personal?
It's political.
Okay. 100%.
It's all part of a new brand of politics experts are calling lawful but awful. And it's on the rise for local officials, city managers.
These are the people that are screwing us over as citizens.
And county clerks.
An unknown individual threw a partial pipe bomb into my house.
Are bearing the brunt. The Texas mayor received a threatening package containing a noose and a note that read, "Get out of the race now." Harassment of local officials, Democrats and Republicans alike, is up 55% over the past 2 years, according to a Princeton study. Shannon Hiller ran the study.
The sort of persistent and rising threats and harassment could be effective and really disrupting democratic processes at their most local level.
In Washoe County, politics can sometimes feel like the Wild West.
I don't like D.C. that much. They won't let me carry Daphne there.
Who's Daphne?
My 45.
Where lawful but awful seems to be working, says County Republican Chair Bruce Parks.
If you want to bring light to something, do you just whisper the information to somebody? Or do you want to get their attention?
Even as politics in Washoe look more and more like Washington.
I beat cancer, and I definitely will not stop because of this.
Beth Smith's decision to stick it out just landed her a spot on the county school board for another term. For Eye on America, Caitlin Huey-Burns, Washoe County, Nevada.
Students in one major U.S. city will soon have to get through the school day without cell phones and social media. That's next. We have breaking news. Let's get right to Chanel Call.
Sad news tonight in the world of baseball. MLB Hall of Famer Willie Mays has died. Mays started his career in the Negro Leagues at age 16. He joined the MLB 1 year after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. Mays spent 21 seasons with the team. He was a 2-time MVP and later received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He was elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1979. The MLB tonight calling him one of the most exciting all-around players in the history of the game. Mays was 93 years old. Chanel Call, CBS News, New York.
This is new. Public schools in Los Angeles are banning smartphones and social media apps during school hours in 2025. Board members in the nation's second largest district say phones and social media are distractions and harmful to students' mental health. School officials now have 120 days to consider where cell phones should be stored during the day and what exceptions should be made to the rules. Heart of America is next. Tomorrow marks Juneteenth, which commemorates the end of slavery in the U.S. For many African American families, it can be a challenge to trace their lineage. But one Virginia family found a way, and now their story is on display at the Library of Congress. Here's CBS's Nicole Killian with tonight's Heart of America.
At the Library of Congress, this sprawling family tree has roots that run deep.
It's the largest family tree.
The Blackwell's kinfolk tree was created by Thelma Short Doswell, a genealogist who traced the Virginia family's lineage, which counts Dennis great Arthur Ashe among its descendants, all the way back to its first African ancestor in 1789.
It's really unique for African Americans because of slavery, for one. Slavery did exactly what it was supposed to. It destroyed the family ties.
Family ties resurrected when librarian Ahmed Johnson showed it to colleague Mila Hill.
Did you even know that this tree existed? No, I had no idea.
Who discovered her great-great-grandmother Mary Reese and brought a branch of her family to see it.
It's one thing to know your own family history, but to have it displayed in this way is really, really special. That's a wonderful tribute to their lives, to be able to stand here.
Growing generations. Nicole Killian, CBS News, Washington.
The Blackwell family and their ancestors, tonight's Heart of America. I saw it in person. It gives you the chills. It's absolutely beautiful. That's tonight's CBS Evening News. Good night.